It's interesting that we've gotten to a point now where we're thinking about what does it do to a customer when we implement AI. And you and I have done many of the things that relate to thinking through execution strategies for customers who really want to start to implement efficiencies in their business. And when we start talking to AI strategies, we start talking about that as a relative business model for us as well as a company, because it's really where we've decided to head. And I think a lot of people who are talking about AI would like to get into this business, but there's a lot of roadmap issues, right? So we talked about this before, where you can't just wave a magic wand and have AI figure it out for you. It's garbage in, garbage out, like any other software tool. Well, I wanted to ask you, Aaron, and again, Aaron and I are sort of the lead thinkers of Profit Engines, which is part of now the new building of I would say an equestrian level of thinking instead of a pedestrian level of thinking about how to get ahead of this stuff. Just a few thoughts on your mind about where we are in the industry for AI and what we can do as people who are thinking about this on implementation.
Great question, Matt. Two paths really stand out for a lot of people that have been in the industry for a while, and there's a third one that stands out for new startups to the arena. Maybe guys and gals just getting their agency off the ground or thinking about getting an agency going. The first two paths are by bolt on an existing platform that uses AI. And is it a ChatGPT build? Is it a Claude build? Is it one of the others? Wherever you fit in, it's, do I want to do something that uses someone else's platform as the base? Maybe, maybe not, right? You can scale that. It could be a subscription offering. It could be a new app, a web portal, a membership zone where you could bring students. However, there's a catch. You're always reliant on that platform innovating at the pace that you need. You're not always going to have the leading edge solution because you're really not leading that change yourself. That's the second path. Do I invest and use some of my existing resources and bring the developers trained on the platform that I identify as most relevant to my future offerings? And do I bring them in-house? Do I build a team? Do I commit to that? Much the same as you're going to start committing to where we all learned way back in the day, industry, a niche, self-focus for your lead generation. You're going to have to do that with AI as well. Do I focus on being a content house? Do I simply use AI to augment copywriting, content creatives? Or do I go a different direction? Do I use it to build solutions that replace outdated systems in businesses? A great example is AI voice answering agents instead of trying to build a call center, or automated text follow-up and campaign messaging instead of worrying about a manual workflow that only has set messages that go out in a scripted sequence. What if I could turn that into an organic conversation? A lot of those conversations happen to turn into sales when you get more engaged faster. So those are the two primary paths. Do I build it in-house, or do I bolt on a platform that exists in the marketplace and resell that effectively? The third one that the new guys and gals are getting into with the startups is, can I do both? And I'm seeing a lot of the younger crowd, and when I say younger, I'm saying maybe in college still or just about to get there. They're saying, oh no, I can handle it all. I have all the time in the world. Maybe I don't have the money. So they'll attempt to build, they'll attempt to create their own platform. You could go to platforms like Make, find it with OpenAI's API, start building your own bots, something that would be useful to you, a tool. But then you run into that headache of, okay, now I have to manage it. Do I decide to become a SaaS platform with my offering that I've now made, or do I just use it internally and get regular clients and it's now just a bolt-on service on my normal agency build that I would have? And they kind of run into that same space where now they've got to pick one of the first two paths we described. Do we go bigger with it and where do we go with it? I think a simple way to think about it is, if I want AI in my business, what problem or what pain am I trying to take away from my clients that I have now? Or if I'm looking for clients, what's the fastest thing I can solve with AI that I can sell a lot of right out of the gate? And then stick to that until you've got a baseline and then peel off some of your revenue to play with research and development or exploratory programs to make something new. Develop the team in-house.
Right. And there's B2B ideas here and B2C ideas. And I think there's a big divide because most people are used to seeing ChatGPT as like, hey, I know how to use AI. I go to ChatGPT. But what we're really talking about is systems, talking to systems and making decisions on in the larger language model, right? On this learning language model, right? LLM. And my thought has always been that, we're getting into a framework where our goal is not necessarily, I think, what you just mentioned, which is it's not really to solve everything. It's to look at a piece and to take that piece and to use that bot or that AI structure and kind of conquer things one at a time. That's sort of like ChatGPT itself as a function is like one of those things, right? It solves hey, I could go and get my blog post done or whatever by putting in some stuff. But, engineering inputs and prompting, which really becomes this sort of sage who can do this, right? Who can prompt engineer things. And when we talk to businesses now, whether they're in this case, we work a lot with people who are thought leaders, coaches, consultants, people who are trying to get more time in their day by doing less stuff, right? They really want to just create content and let their VAs and their people, or have us do it or whatever, do the modeling of the distribution path. And we're trying to figure out how do we shortcut a lot of the processes that are involved. And we counted 17 networks that people are going to be able to really think about where they should be putting their content this morning. That was okay, well, that's great. Now, one at a time, you have to implement this. There's not an Uber switch. There's not some switch that you can put on the wall and go, okay, it's just going to work, because there's nuances not necessarily in the platforms themselves, but in the way that your context is hitting those platforms. So you have to build, different strategies with bots. Speaking to YouTube is not the same as speaking to TikTok or whatever. But I think the concept that I was trying to drive from, some of the discussions that we had today, which is that the larger opportunity here, and this is for a business or for an agency or for anybody who's in this, is to start to gravitate into the models that use very, very simple things to make very easy things happen, to get models built that are so simple that you go, well, why wouldn't we have a VA just do that? And I think that's where the wins come from, is that these models of building AI to talk to systems start with really looking at replacing very simple things, and then understanding from those models what you can do to then turn that into sort of, as we call it, heredity, right? Which is to look backwards from where you're starting your what you're trying to get done, and reverse all that heredity. And we have done this for several other customers using, or I should say several other, but for other customers, but by thinking about how you simplify processes. Because what we're going to run into, and I think most businesses are in this particular case, and this is why I wanted to simplify this discussion, we're running into businesses that really don't have just organic processes built out yet. So when you're trying to so someone wants, hey, I want AI because I could do AI, which really says to the customer or the business, okay, what do you want fixed? And then you look at what you want fixed. And what we're very, very quickly finding out is that the processes aren't even thought through in the organic, natural way that they're doing it today. So that we're actually starting, and this is what I wanted to come to as a conclusion, we're starting to think about AI first in modeling when you start to think about business processes. Because you could go organic first, but maybe we're thinking the wrong way, which is we should be asking AI the model. And then from there, you start to think, well, that might be an easier way to take these organic processes and reformat them. Because then AI will say, oh, it's already thought through that organic process and said, here's the best way of doing it, instead of telling the customer what your opinion is. So what do you think about it?
It's fantastic. It's the right path going forward. And to give a really simple example that almost everyone can relate to who is a business owner, sales. On the sales side of the house, which we know excuses and is to blame for everything in every business. What if you could use AI to not only replace the calling agents, but then replace the sales agents as well? And on top of that, build a sales manager personality that runs the team for you. Now I've got a real solution. Now I have a way to free myself as an owner from the entire sales equation and simply understand the metrics that are produced by my digital team. And then if I need to engage on a certain call or have a human interaction to create a stronger close, given a higher dollar ask or a unique ask, I can still step in. But I've won back a significant amount of my time by putting the entire team in. Perfect training, perfect answers, perfect phone calls, perfect reporting, no mistakes. They're not people waiting to be trained, they're pre-designed personalities that are ready instantly. It's a great example of a total solution done through AI instead of what we're seeing a lot of, the band-aid fix, the bolt-on one. Hey, solve this one thing for me. Help my executive assistant take this off her plate because I need more of her time. What if I replace 80% of your executive assistant and then she could help you get into sales and maybe do more appointment setting? And now I have a highly functional revenue generating activity instead of just overhead. I can fundamentally change the role by adding AI. I don't force the role away from you and I don't take anyone's job. I simply make the best people in your business even better.
Right. And that's what I was thinking about as we go through our iterations, and the customers who we're working with, who are, let's just say, they really want as quickly as possible for us to implement these things, right?
Oh yeah.
And they're extensive opportunities for revenue generation and extending product sets into their customer base and all the things that come with time-saving models. And the things that come up into our world from just the day-to-day kind of, and I don't want to mean about this, but sort of gerrymandering their existing organic strategies and things that they've done, and sort of just saying, look, at least let's fix what's really broken and get it to at least working correctly. It's almost as if I keep identifying that repeating pattern that needs to be thought about, which is that in an optimal world, what would I do here? And without hurting feelings with internal employees, but really looking at sort of arguing the case, as you mentioned, is like, well, who can we replace with this strategy, right? Which could be a lot. And again, it's not, I don't want to make this sound like it's replacing everything, but it tends to be that there's a lot of repeating themes with most businesses that are easily answerable and easily detected, first off, as these conversations, whether it's in sales or customer support or whatever. But from the small business side, that's not used to like these large scale operations that, you know, like an AT&T or a big monster corporate that, you know, they've already got a lot of this worked through from a different layer. It's not necessarily paralleling what the experience of a small business user would be. But I think the fear, and this comes right out of every customer we've spoken with, is that they're concerned about the personality. Like they're concerned about, hey, what if this customer gets pissed off and they get mad? I mean, you'd expect that the person, a regular, you know, human would get to a certain degree where they would get upset and they would, you know, follow. There's a lot, but, you know, is that the right move? And is it not the right move? You know, should there be emotionally engaged people at a certain level, or maybe that call should be flagged and then moved immediately into a certain level where it goes to a human at that point? There's so many different variables here. But what ends up happening is that you tend to find these 80-20 rules all across the board, which is that 80% of the conversations, sales conversations, they all end up being sort of related to the same thing, whether it's pricing or specifications or product sets. It's like most of it is already there. Whereas at the end of the day, want their experience to be quicker, faster, better, right? So what's the real rub here? And it is the fear of the horse versus the carriage, right? Or the horse versus the car. or horse and carriage versus the automobile, which is that, yes, it looks good, but I'm scared it's going to take my experience away that I'm used to. And I think we're getting close, and it's probably going to be another year or so before these LLMs, learning language models or language learning models, they become more relevant, because what's going to happen is that you won't know. And that's what's going to happen, is that you won't know, and nor will you care.
No, it's just the faster solution to my answer. Buyers today are better informed. They're more conscious about what they're buying. The salesman is more often than not seen as someone or something in the way. So let's get that part of the way out of the customer's view. Let's give them their answers faster. Make it painless. Suddenly you do more sales. I love it.
So this is another interesting discussion. We'll continue on the path of doing more AI related topics as we start to build out our infrastructure and we help other companies build out their infrastructure. The learnings that we have, because there's no one who's figured this stuff out. It's just a big on-ramp right now. It's a big piece of everyone's idea of puzzle and so forth of what they want to do. But we are starting to accumulate stories, and we'll bring them to you as we get further down the path. So till our next episode, thank you.